everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Science Policy Interview Series 2022. I am Angeli Vasquez. I am delighted to be joined today by Dr. Eliane Ubalijoro, who is the Canadian Hub Director of Future Earth, professor at McGill University, member of the Rwanda's National Science and Technology Council, fellow of the African Academy of Science, and board member of the International Leadership Association. Dr. Ubalijoro, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. So yesterday, you and Dr. Dominique Berrouvet from Concordia University made the announcements about the new think tank Sustainability in the Digital Age that aims to help accelerate environmental sustainability with digital technology in support of the United Nations Sustainable Goals. So we want to do the interview around the announcement. And the first question I would like to ask you is, what is the digitalization means in the context of sustainability, and how can digitalization support a just transition for a sustainable planet?
Okay. So the reality is today, digitalization is at the center of everything. 90% of jobs are identified through the internet. So connectivity today really should be a human right. And so we know that digitalization is already driving massive economic, social, and environmental changes. And in the context of sustainability, what we know is it's important to identify what are the opportunities that are driving transformation in a manner that is helping build a healthier, safer, cleaner, and more equitable future. And so moreover, we need to recognize and mitigate instances where digitalization is deepening societal inequalities and increasing environmental degradation. So they're the positive sides of digitalization and the negative side. So we have to really look at how do we accelerate the positive and minimize or ideally eliminate the negatives around the accelerated use of digitalization.
So to follow the answer, I would like to ask you, what are the primary aims and tactics that Future Earth and University of Concordia are pursuing to promote digitalization, transformation, and sustainability?
So through Sustainability in Digital Age and Future Earth, for example, we're involved in the Coalition for Digital Environmental Sustainability, which is a partnership with the United Nations Tech Invoice Office, the United Nations Development Program, and the United Nations Environmental Program, the Ministry of Environment in Kenya, as well as the German Environment Agency and the International Science Council. So we have an action plan that we've developed around a sustainable digital planet. And so through codes, the action plan, we really see three areas that are really critical. The first one is how do we enable alignment and prioritize the investments and resources needed to systemically align digital transformation with the global sustainable development agenda. And so this is really around aligning vision and values globally. And the second one is really how do we mitigate the negative effects? So addressing greenhouse gas emissions of digital technology, the precious metals and e-waste related to digital technologies, misinformation, and how today 7 to 9 times more misinformation is present on the internet than accurate, truth, science-based information, and also the gap between those who have access and those who don't. And so how do we look at these negative side effects? And the third is how do we accelerate the innovations that can really help us accelerate the positive use of digitalization and sustainability. So we look at digital twins of the planet, how those can be used to look at scenario planning and identify the most positive ways forward, digital product passports that allow us to know, what are the greenhouse gas emissions, what are the different effects that products, where they're produced, how they're produced, has on natural, social, and human capital. Looking at how do we really have sustainable digital e-commerce, how do we look at climate resilient regenerative agricultural practices and digitally enabled off-grid solutions that accelerate our mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions and adaptation. And also at the sustainability in digital age, one of our key tactics moving forward is really encouraging literacy and awareness around digital sustainability. So for example, we have a partnerships with the LEADS program, which is a program at Concordia University on leadership at the interface of environmental sustainability and digitalization. And this is for graduate students, undergraduate, and postdoctoral fellows. And by exploring the creation of education modules and courses on the intersection of sustainability and digital innovation. So those are the types of things we're doing at that interface.
Thanks for your answer, and I think this is the right thing to do. The main goals are very clear, but I wanted to follow that up with the question, so how all actors should be engaged in the process of digitalization to develop a governance structure based on sustainability? And what do you think it will be the main challenges to bring them all together?
Okay, so really one of the main challenges is how do we ensure a just transition that really minimizes the digital divide? How do we accelerate equal access to and capacity to use digital tools and accelerate digital literacy? How do we bring the different actors together who can come from fundamentally very different backgrounds and have different worldviews? We know, how do we bring venture capitalists, sustainability scientists, AI experts, technology sector actors, governments from different countries together? And how do we allow all of these stakeholders, indigenous communities, to steer the digital age in a direction that benefits both people and planet? And so if we leave this unchecked, it is unlikely that the digital age will take us into a desirable direction. And so this is very critical in terms of how do we move forward collectively together and leave nobody behind.
Yeah, that's crucial for this project. So the last question about this topic is there a plan that nations like Canada or institutions in Canada like Future Earth, universities, are adopting to assist other countries that are a bit behind this digitalization mechanism? So there is a strategy or something to help them.
So one of the things that's really good to know is Canada's National Artificial Intelligence Strategy, the Pan-Canadian Artificial Intelligence Strategy, was actually the first national AI strategy, and this was in 2017. And it focuses on different priorities: AI for health, AI for the environment, how do we use AI for science for good? And so it's really critical to realize that how do we translate AI into research that has commercial application, and focusing on developing standards for responsible AI to make sure that AI is really being used for good, and that we are being aware of the current blind spots and that we don't let those blind spots continue, because we really want to make sure that AI is as inclusive as possible and as ethical in ways that it serves all populations. I also mentioned earlier the CODES program, where it's a number of governments and the United Nations. So this is one of the initiatives we're involved in that really is helping move us forward in that direction. We've also done a number of gatherings with the United Nations Environmental Program, with the technology industry, to understand how can they help support the Sustainable Development Goals moving forward. And so we do a lot of work. We had a major publication, which is the D2S agenda, that's really looking at the major disruptions. We know that virtual reality, we know that mass collaboration, we know that AI is going to be really critical in how we're looking at the ways to move forward. And so these digital disruptors are critical to understand, and how we harness those is really important in terms of how do we accelerate digital use for good. And so this is something that we see really important. We're also looking at how do we harness high resolution satellite data to guide practices that are accelerating nature-based solutions. So in Canada, we are looking beyond carbon to look at the ecosystem's effect of how we're working with Indigenous populations to accelerate a nature-positive pathway forward towards 2030 and 2050 in terms of Canada's goals, in line with the Paris Agreement. We also, with the Canadian Science Policy Centre, what we've done is we work together on an Economic and Social Development Canada program, and it's been really exciting, because one of the things we did is we produced two reports, a major report for the government that was very lengthy, but we also just recently came out with a shorter, more colorful, more visual report on Canada's sustainable future, creating a digital action plan. And so this one we hope will be more accessible to citizens and to anybody who is not an expert but really wants to understand, what can be done in Canada to help accelerate how we use digitalization for good and to help serve the Sustainable Development Goals. And so this is also, we're really thankful to ESDC for that support, and the Fonds de Recherche de Québec is our main supporter in terms of our core activities. And so what the support we're getting on the provincial and federal level is critical to us, and how this support also helps other actors across Canada to say, how do we harness this digital age, and how do we allow Canada to really take leadership around the Sustainable Development Goals? We know that our Prime Minister is a UN advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals with the Prime Minister of Barbados. And so I think it's really about how do we collectively at all levels of society work in ways that really accelerate our capacity for Canada to meet its own goals, but also help other countries all over the world meet their own goals.
Thank you so much. You're right. We need to get engaged all together in this type of initiatives. And before closing and the interview, I just want to thank you for being engaged with CSPC, and thanks for being here today, for being also in the conference. And I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the biggest benefit and value of attending and supporting the CSPC conference this year?
So I think the CSPC conference is really a major convening for Canada that really brings actors across all sector, private, nonprofit, academic, government, together to really think on how does science serve policy and how does policy enable better science. And so I think it's been a really amazing program. Also, it's been the first in-person event since COVID, so it's been very exciting being able to meet people from all cross sectors, from health to environment and everything in between, to meet different actors at all levels of government, to meet amazing leaders that were recognized at the gala last night. It was really moving to listen to Sheila Watts-Cloutier give her speech in terms of the amazing work she has been doing in terms of recognizing and elevating Indigenous voices, especially women's voices. I think CSPC this year has been really stellar in terms of really being a place that is bringing together all of us to build forward better, because really I think whether it's COVID or people worrying, are we getting into a recession or not, it's a time of reset. And CSPC is creating a convening space for all of us together to think forward and vision a future we want, not only for ourselves, but for future generations, as well as a future that really encourages a sustainable planet where we come as close as possible as staying within 1.5 degrees Celsius. So I think it's really amazing, the different activities, the sessions on health, the sessions on environment, on infrastructure, looking at decarbonization of our economy, looking at what are the technologies that can help accelerate, and not minimizing also the importance of nature-based solutions moving forward. So I'm really grateful to CSPC, to all the hard work and amazing young volunteers, because I think that's also something we have to highlight, is CSPC is helping us prepare the next generation of actors at the interface of science policy in Canada that are going to be critical to what we do here locally, what we do internationally, and how we integrate Indigenous views. So
exactly. Thanks so much. As a CSPC volunteer, I appreciate your opinion. So thank you very much, and looking forward.
Thank you. My pleasure.